All right, ladies and gentlemen, I will call this special called meeting to order. It is Wednesday, September 15th at 11 a.m. And welcome those that are in person and those that are online. Before we get started and before I ask the clerk to call the roll, I am sure that most of you are aware that early this week, I believe on Monday, there was a Longwood student that passed away very tragically and very unexpectedly. And while she was a 21-year-old nursing student at Longwood, she lived off campus and actually on High Street. It is extremely sad, and what I'm going to ask in just a moment is that we have a moment of silence in her memory. I have spoken to her mother and expressed the town's condolences. It was a very sad phone call. She did say that her daughter absolutely loved Farmville, loved being here, and thought it was a really great community. So with that, I would ask us just to have a moment of silence in honor of Madison Wessels. Thank you. With that, I'll ask the clerk to call the roll.
Mr. Hunter?
Here.
Mr. Parrott?
Here.
Mr. Reed?
Here.
Mr. Vincent?
Here.
Mrs. Amos?
Here.
Mr. Cole? And Mr. Dwyer?
Here.
Okay. The special call meeting is to approve the medical compensation, to amend the resolution for the special compensation. And with that, I'll ask Mr. Davis to explain.
Mayor, members of council, it seems that last week you did pass a resolution that kind of finalized this benefit that has been around since probably the 2005-2007 timeframe. It seems that with council being generous with benefits such as this one and still keeping this benefit while changing it to help the town coffers and simultaneously making it fair and equitable for employees, there were a few employees who took the previous resolution out of context relative to those with 25 years of service getting the benefit for 25 years instead of 10 as it states later on in that resolution. So the administration decided this needed to be tightened up, along with what type of separation from the town an employee would be eligible for this compensation, and the time period that if an employee is deceased, it doesn't go beyond that. The payment stops. Also that with the lump sum, making it known that if you want the lump sum, you've got to make that determination when you separate. So it's either 80% of the payout or you get it for 10 years. So some of that's been changed. And just to be clear, when you separate, it states in this amended resolution, good standing. And just to be clear on what good standing means, it means leaving on positive terms. And those resigning before being terminated or resigning while being evaluated for misconduct, or those that are terminated or any negative reasons to separate would not be eligible for this compensation. You have to leave in good terms, good standing with the town. I don't believe it was y'all's intention to reward someone that did not leave in good standing. So, Mayor, that is my summary of what this amending resolution does from that of a week ago.
Thank you. Are there questions? I'm sure everybody's had an opportunity to read the amended resolution. We've had it for some days now. Are there any questions for Mr. Davis from council members? Did you want to?
Yes, if I can speak
I mean, typically, we don't allow speakers doing special sessions, but I'm happy to allow you to speak.
Well, I want to, the mayor and council and Dr. Davis, just thank y'all for what you're doing. I understand that the liability on the town for the future, but I've talked to my guys that's been here for the 25 years, and it's going to come to an end today. I feel like it's going to come, and I told them I'd talk on their behalf. And so the ones with the 25 years, everybody under that, it's pretty much set with the 25 years, and I know the liability of the town, and I don't disagree with this. And the changing over to the state retirement, I think that's great. But for the ones that are 25 and years of service and over, that's the ones it doesn't benefit. And this thing that we were looking for the future was a big part of our planning. So what I was thinking to ask, and what I talked to them about, I think most of the reason we're doing this is the liability, but also the separation. You end it, the guys end it. And the 80% makes a big difference there, as far as them getting it in 10 years. What I told them, would ask if there's any way y'all could do the 15. Every one of them I've talked to, they say if you did 15, I'd definitely take the 80% back. And again, this would put an end to it. But that's just throwing that out there, just another suggestion. Really hadn't talked about it much. Maybe I talked to a couple, but and there was a lot of talk of how it was going to happen, and nobody really knew. And I don't think even probably y'all, then it was decided. So then once they kind of hear it, what's really getting decided, it affects them. So you think about people that are getting ready to retire, say under state retirement, then they come up and say, well, we ain't going to be able to afford it, so we're going to knock up 20-25% of yours. It's just that's the way to look at it. So just wanted to throw it out there for the guys. It's going to come to an end today. We do appreciate everything. We have great benefits with the town. So, I just wanted to let them know how I've talked to most of them with this is under the 25. This is most of them with the 25 years of service. And again, trying to end it, I think it would put more of a quote into it than maybe the 10 years you have to look at it. So, all right. Thank you all for listening.
Thank you, Mr. Atkins. I appreciate your comments. Let me do a little background here. I think there's probably some confusion on this whole thing, because I am one of the few, along with Mr. Reed, who was around when this was done many years ago. This was never intended to be a retirement benefit. This actually came about because at that time there were a number of retirees, and unfortunately they're now mostly all deceased, who had worked for the town for a number of years, retired, and basically had no benefits. And this was done to help them actually buy they got Medicare, but they had to buy a supplement. And so this was done to help them buy their supplement. And then over the years, it has snowballed and mushroomed, if you will, into what is now a $2 million liability for the taxpayers. And I think we appreciate the town employees. And let me just say, as far as the town employees go, we have looked after them all through the years. During COVID, I remember the first conversation we had when we thought we were going to have to cut budgets is let's try not to lay anybody off. Let's try not to cut salaries. And we were successful in not laying anybody off and in not cutting salaries. And you don't have to go many blocks up the street that way till you will run into folks who cut salaries for a year and laid some people off and all that. So the employees, they may not realize how fortunate they are that they did not have to endure salary cuts or layoffs, because the possibility was very, very real. We have gone to VRS, which has been something that has been talked about the entire 20-plus years I've been on council. And what that has done for the taxpayers is given them a liability of millions of dollars into perpetuity forever. And during that discussion and I was very supportive of VRS, but during that discussion, there were a number of town taxpayers who said to me, it seems like the council only looks out after town employees. Who looks out after the taxpayers? And I know, Ms. Amos, you did not vote for the budget because of the tax increases. So clearly you were one that was looking out for the town taxpayers, and there are some people out there that are wondering, who looks out after the taxpayers? Being a town employee, it's a public service as well as a paid job. And you have to remember that when you go to work for any public entity, You don't go to work to enrich yourself or get rich. And I know there are a number around this table who have worked for state agencies, and you can attest to the fact that when you work for state agencies, municipalities, typically you don't walk away millionaires or with great sums of money. And we as a council, and I think I can speak for everybody up here, we have done our best over the years to try to look after our employees. Our employees do a good job, but the council walks a fine line. It's looking out for the employees, but they're also the taxpayers and the people who elect us and the people who actually write the checks that pay the bills. We have to look out for them as well. And I can appreciate what you said. I understand it. We all would like to have more in our jobs, but there just reaches a point that you have to reach a balance. And I think the council, the finance committee, has done a phenomenal job in trying to reach a balance here and bring this program to an end. It's not a given. Council could have just said, we're suspending it altogether. Done. It will be no more. And having said that, in the future, this council or future councils can do just that. This council cannot commit a future council. A future council can come along and say, hey, we have too much liability here. Let's just suspend the program altogether. And they can do that. So again, we're walking a balance. We're walking a fine line here. I think this is a really good compromise. And there were a couple of town employees in the meetings, and no one wanted to hurt town employees. We tried to figure out a way to end this program, not hurt employees, and I think we found a way to do that. I think this is really a great balance and a great way to do that. And I could not walk away from here if I didn't say I was not disappointed in some of the comments I have heard from some town employees. It does disappoint me, given the fact that the town has really, over the years, tried to do extremely well by the employees. You're not always going to get what you want. None of us always get what you want. And with that, I'll open the floor to those up here who wish to comment.
Well, as being on the finance committee, I mean, this was not an easy decision. We went back and forth several times. And as a retiree from the state, I don't think we would have gotten any better anywhere else. The balance as of the funds, this is what we can do right now. And this is why I voted to approve this.
I'll echo some of Mr. Hunter's sentiments. We have met on this issue multiple times, and I know that it's weighed on every member of council as we try to navigate this in an amicable way, which is not always easy when you're balancing so many different people's lives. It's a tough thing to balance out, but I think we've done our due diligence in looking at it, trying to come up to that amicable solution. And whenever you're dealing with a benefit of this sort, there's always a point where you have to make decisions where not everybody's going to be extremely happy. And that's just the nature of sitting up here. But I do want to say that I think, in my experience here on council, that this council does weigh the employees' health and happiness. It sits pretty heavy on us. It's something we think about a lot. And balancing that against, as the mayor said, the constituents who elected us and who pay taxes in this town. Sometimes you have to make hard decisions. And this one, for me, I think, I sit pretty well with it. I like where we settled. And that's why I voted to approve it from Finance Committee as well.
No further comment.
If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve the amended resolution.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion, we approve the amended resolution 2021-0905, approving the medical compensation for certain retirees' benefit payment plan.
Second.
Motion and second. Any additional discussion? If not, I'll ask the clerk to call the roll.
Mr. Reed,
Yes.
Mr. Vincent,
Yes.
Mrs. Amos,
Yes.
Mr. Dwyer,
Yes.
Mr. Hunter,
Yes.
Mr. Parrott.
Yes.
On a unanimous vote, the measure to amend resolution number 2021-09-05 has passed.
Thank you, clerk. While we're here, ladies and gentlemen, I want to update you on a couple of conference calls that we have been on, Mr. Davis and I have been on. Yesterday's conference call concerned COVID, and then it also concerned the relocation of refugees. Needless to say, I think as we've all read, the hospital is still, the ICU is still full with COVID. They've seen no decline. They're thinking the peak may be 4 to 6 weeks down the road. In their ER and outpatient, the volumes have been the highest they've ever been. Between the hospital and Central Medical Group, I think they're seeing about 200 patients a day. Over half of them need to be COVID tested. The Afghan situation is that they have, at Fort Pickett, where the Afghans are, they have active tuberculosis, measles, and COVID. And as you know, the measles is highly contagious. And clerk, do you have that handout I asked that you can share with council? You got it. Good. Okay. There was a handout from the health commissioner about measles and how contagious they are. Mr. Davis asked a really good question yesterday of the local health director, and that is those of us who, as children or young people, that were vaccinated for measles, do we have a concern? And Mr. Davis, I'll let you speak to that.
The response was, I mean, it's not a definitive, but if it, I think they said it last, and so we should be fine if you have already been vaccinated for measles.
But they did underscore that measles are highly contagious. The other thing, and again, Mr. Davis, I'll let you speak to, is the fact that there may be some refugees relocating to hotels in our community.
I'm part of a homeless task force group representing the town's interest. And we had a meeting yesterday, and it was brought up that they've been able, through grants, this task force has been able to put some folks that have been homeless into some of our local hotels for a period of time. And they got notice that they would no longer be able to do that because 2 hotels in town are soon to be having their rooms used by the Afghan refugee situation. So, I can't remember whether it was the refugees support staff or a mixture of both. So don't hold me to that exact, but it did have to do with that situation. And also on our call yesterday, and I don't want to steal the mayor's thunder, there is approximately, just so you know how this is affecting our health system. One, we're seeing there's like 13 to 15 COVID patients at our hospital, over 100 in Lynchburg. They are seeing more ER visits than they have, whether it's from people with COVID or whether it's people that are having other ailments that maybe didn't pursue hospital care or something during the pandemic, those types of things. They're seeing, they're going to be, and they have seen from Fort Pickett, there is a large number of Afghan women that are pregnant. Right now, there's approximately, I think the word yesterday was about 300 pregnant Afghan women there, and it could reach up to more than that. And our hospital typically probably delivers an average of a baby a day, which is only 365, obviously, maybe a year. So when you add 300 more and potentially more than that, it is going to further stress our healthcare system locally and any rural area, because the healthcare system is usually not as large of a system as you would have in an inner city or larger area.
And with that, of course, the chief is aware, and his department will need to work. We're going to reach out to Senator Keene and Senator Warner, and they are already on this. There was an article this morning saying that Senator Keene and Warner have reached out to the Department of Homeland Security and asked that there be no more refugees brought into localities right now, because it is placing a strain on the infrastructure of localities, particularly the healthcare system. And they're not detainees, they're refugees. And so if they come, they're free to move about in the community and free to do things. And of course, they're going to be totally lost. And so there's a communications barrier. I understand that in Afghanistan, there's 3 or 4 different dialects, and some of the interpreters that are used locally are not able to provide interpretation services for all Afghans because of the different dialects. So it's a challenge, but it's a challenge like all other challenges that we will meet and we'll overcome, but we will work through it. And
I just want to add that I do think the problem is there is no communication from the Commonwealth or the federal government with localities that are going to bear the brunt of all this, as we always do whenever something transpires this way. And the locality is the last resort to make sure that everything works right when it happens. And so I do think a conversation, I mentioned this to the mayor, that with our elected officials, at least at the state and federal level, at least we can voice our opinion and what it is doing here locally and could do for us.
I have a question. Do we have any confirmed Afghan cases of COVID at our hospital right now?
They wouldn't share that information as far as from a health-related.
Measles at our hospital, Afghan, they wouldn't share that either? No? And do we have a choice in the matter that the Afghans come and take our motels, and that we have homeless people, you know, that probation and parole have to use our motels up there? And I mean, I know Blackstone is in the situation that the mayor up there, they have no communication at all with the federal government. They have to push the issue to get information.
yeah, and it's the same situation here. It's my understanding that I assume the federal government has entered into contracts with the local motels, and so it's a contracted service. And again, we were not informed locally at all.
No, this was nothing from, I mean, this was all just in discussion of people in this group that is sharing information with one another, and no direct, I have had zero direct contact from anybody from the state or the federal government about any of what I shared.
And that's why today we're going to be reaching out to Senator Keene and Warner and some folks to see if we can. I understand from Blackstone they've not been forthcoming.
I just do not want us to be a dumping ground and to have, I mean, our healthcare system is already strained. And then, you know, they're having incidents of stolen vehicles and that kind of thing over there, and we don't want to be in that position.
I assure you we're going to be proactive.
Do we know what approximate numbers are at Fort Pickett?
It's north of 10,000. North
Yeah.
of 10,000, and they were expecting up to 15, but hopefully they will stop where they are right now and let the local system kind of catch up.
Yeah, I've heard as well, 10,000 or a little more.
Okay, with that, we do have a closed session. Mr. Vincent, I think you have the,
Mr. Mayor, I move that the Farmville Town Council convene in closed meeting pursuant to the Code of Virginia in accordance with the provisions of paragraph A.5 of section 2.2-3711 for discussion concerning a prospective business or industry or the expansion of the existing business or industry where no previous announcement has been made of the business or industry's interest in locating or expanding its facilities in the community.
Second.
motion and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it. We will go into closed session. We're going to the EOC.
Whereas the Farmville Town Council has convened a closed meeting on this date pursuant to an affirmative recorded vote in accordance with the provisions of the Virginia Freedom of Information Act, and whereas Section 2.2-3712 of the Code of Virginia requires a certification by the Farmville Town Council that such closed meeting was conducted in conformity with Virginia law. Now therefore be it resolved that the Farmville Town Council hereby certifies that to the best of each member's knowledge, only public business matters lawfully exempted from open meeting requirements by Virginia law were discussed in the closed meeting to which this certification resolution applies, and only such public business matters as were identified in the motion convening the closed meeting were heard, discussed, or considered by Farmville Town Council.
Second.
Motion and second. Clerk, would you call the roll?
Mr. Hunter,
Yes.
Mr. Vincent,
Yes.
Mr. Parrott,
Yes.
Mr. Dwyer,
Yes.
Mr. Reed,
Yes.
Mrs. Amos.
Yes.
We're now in open session, and I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it. Meeting's adjourned.